All right, I'd like to welcome everybody to the Oracle Inn podcast. We are back again, and I am joined by Kevin and Laquan. How you guys doing?
How's it going?
Hi, friends.
All right, so for today, we're also kind of trying a new format where we're going to be recording our live show here, but then we're also going to be taking it offline to cut it up into smaller segments. So we'll be giving little breaks in there that'll basically be where we're going to cut our segments. So just so anybody that sees those pauses, you know what's going on. So for today, we're going to be talking about three particular topics. And the first one is just kind of looking at some of the recent events that's been going on over the last really like today and yesterday. And that's the protests and marches all over the countries in support of women's rights. So yeah, what do you guys think of?
I've been reading a lot of articles and stuff, and it's crazy because it's actually a global protest, you know, from some of the things I've been reading, you know, in Vienna, Stockholm, Tokyo, parts of Africa. You know, women are out there in hundreds of thousands, well, tens of thousands, protesting in solidarity with a lot of the women in the United States. And I think that's a huge, you know, statement that they're making. I mean, they're marching on the U.S. consulates in their respective countries, sending a message like, when you're the president of the United States and people abroad hate you that much that they're protesting on people's behalf within this country, that has to tell you something. And Trump can say whatever he wants, but I know he feels that, you know, and I know it makes him feel some type of way. But it's good to see that solidarity with them. But since we're talking about women's rights here, we was talking about this off air too as well. You know, I can't wait to that first interview with Melania, that 2020 interview or that 60-minute interview. You know, I wonder if they're going to prep whoever the reporter is. Like, you can't ask this question, you can't ask that question, you can't ask this question. I'm pretty sure that's what's going to be. Don't ask anything about Donald Trump and anything he's ever said, any of his xenophobic language, grab him by the pussy or whatever it is. You can't ask that because she does look shaken, you know, as a woman. Like, you can kind of look and you're like, you know what? Something's off, you know? So I want to hear her speak without him, you know, there next to him. So,
well, you're never going to get that. You're never going to get her by herself. It's just not going to happen. So whatever, I mean, the only, that interview comes once they're divorced. And I don't say if, I say once. His track record seems to suggest that she's running out her usefulness to him. He's going to trade her in for the younger model as per his record. You know, the thing I was looking right now to try to see, but the best part to me about this women's march is, I think in DC alone, and we're talking about, there's all over here in our town, like you're saying, all over the world, there's these protests. In DC alone, there's more people protesting than showed up to his inauguration. That has to sting. That's got to hurt, because if you know, if you're talking about how everyone loves me, I'm the greatest, but, and then more people come up and stand in line and just march to say, you know what, you're an asshole, then showed up to say, hey, you're doing a great job. That's a hit to the ego. Whether or not his giant penis head will take that in and let it rattle around and actually make any sort of impact, it's, you know, I would doubt. I think, you know, his ego is, you know, it is what it is. He's not going to change, even if every sign, the writing's on the wall everywhere, he's going to say, I'm still right.
Let me take a step back. Yeah. Does it bother him? You know, I think on the campaign trail, if it was this much, you know, like just the opposition, the way it is now, I think maybe it would have stung then, you know, because I think if he was at his most vulnerable then, trying to rally a base. But now I feel like he's the type of guy who's like, well, it doesn't matter. I already won. It doesn't matter. To me, you're looked at as a hater to him. I already won. I don't care. You're a hater now. You know, I'm here. Yeah. So I don't even know if this really even phases him, because he's like, you know what? I got my people around me, you know, the people that going to do whatever I need them to do, you know, his cabinet. So I don't even know if this really even means anything, because his wife is not going to speak out, you know, about anything. So I think
I think it does. I think it absolutely is hurting him, or it will eventually, because he wants to be the greatest president in the history of this country. And the fact that millions of people took to the streets on day one to say you're an asshole, he hasn't even really, I mean, he's done a handful of things, but he hasn't even really gotten started, and everyone's already protesting by the millions to tell him, no, not you, man, you're not it. So his ego's gonna, whether or not it hits him now, or there's a great meme on Facebook, which is a picture of George W. Bush smiling at the inauguration, and it says, "When you realize you're no longer the worst president in the history of the country." I thought that was awesome. So,
well, here's a quick question, real quick, Eric, and this is for both of you. And it's super, how did we get this far, right? And so, but let me rephrase that. There's been candidates before who's run, right, and they flip-flop on issues, and because of that flip-flop on an issue, they lost the election because of that. They lost their if you think about on a small level, like you think of like an Anthony Weiner, you send a dick pic, your career is done politically, right? On those type of levels, but yet he's done all of this to a certain extent, flip-flop publicly, said a flip-flop. He's been on record talking about grabbing them by, the female part, all this stuff. You just kind of got to force yourself on them. They like that kind of stuff. You pretty much alienated a whole, this male and female, you the female gender, like you pretty much broad sweep them all together, and you still got through. And it's public, but you still here, like how does that happen?
So I think part of that, and I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. This is a video of the Women's March in Chicago, and we've actually seen, these are similar marches that are happening throughout the country right now. So Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, even here in Flagstaff, we had one that we put together, and there was a huge turnout. And when you say that, I think, and we've talked about this in previous podcasts, I think the thing to remind ourselves is that we're here not because of a popularity vote. He lost that vote. We're here because we have a system in place that proportionately wants to even out each state having an equal voice. And it's because of that he knew where to shop to get those voices, to get him those votes. What I think is interesting, though, is that like what we're seeing with a lot of these protests and these marches that are going on throughout the country, I don't think this is going anywhere anytime soon. I think this is really only the beginning, because we've kind of talked about it before about how people feel about Donald Trump. But what I think is also interesting is that I don't think that a lot of Trump supporters, who are very defensive, and I can understand why, they're getting attacked from every angle right now. But what I don't think they understand about the other, air quotes, side in all of this is that we're not even really arguing policy right now. There is something immoral about this man and the way he conducts himself, and how that is then going to bleed into policy that we have an issue with. So this is, these are a lot of people out there that they're done. They don't want to play this game anymore. And I don't think they're going to.
Yeah. So I saw some commentary, I don't know, probably a few weeks ago, that was essentially calling this anti-Trump movement, America's Arab Spring. So, I think that's what it's kind of right in line with what you're saying. Right?
So just real quick then, can you just briefly say what the Arab Spring is for those that aren't familiar?
Well, so there was Arabs in the springtime. No, it was
sounds like a Broadway play.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was essentially over in the Middle East, you had a bunch of people get really upset with their governments. They coordinated via social media, Twitter mostly, and they essentially took to the streets, and they for those of you that don't watch any actual news, people in other parts of the world protest much better than we do. we oh my God, did you see they smashed the window of that Starbucks? Can you believe that, Dale? No, I mean, these people were lighting buildings on fire, going, no. So that it was what, 4 or 5 years ago?
2010.
2010? Yes. Damn. 7 years ago. I'm old. So yeah, I mean, essentially it was this upwelling populist push out of the government that took place in several countries. It wasn't just one area. So I think it was right about the same time as Occupy, wasn't it? Occupy kind of came out of that, I think, like right after it.
Yeah, because I think they saw what they were doing over there and wanted to use a lot of the same methods.
Yeah. So what this person, I don't remember who it was that was doing the commentary, was saying, is this America's version of that, where they're so fed up that they're, we're gonna protest the best way we know how, which is to, I guess, march on city halls and other stuff like that. There's a handful of, the anarchist kind of crowd with their backpacks and face masks, lighting stuff on fire. But for the most part, it's just people showing up, and you don't see this. I mean, when's the last time that you saw millions of people take to the streets across the country? Not even counting the rest of the world, across the country, saying, no, this is bullshit. I mean, we don't Americans, we like to sit back in our lazy boy and watch it on TV. We don't like to go out in the cold. You kidding? It's dirty out there.
I'm loving it. I can't wait to be a part of it. I feel like this is what we need. I feel like this is the time America's finally waking up in this different facets, different issues, it's all collectively coming together. So to me, I love it,
Yeah, and I'll just kind of come back very briefly. So these are some pictures. Actually, my friend put that up. Let me grab my photos here. So these are some of the photos of what was happening here in Flagstaff. And, it was, there's snow out there. It's pretty damn cold out there. We have another snow system moving in. And you can just tell from all over, people were there. Everybody had signs just basically saying, a woman has a right to her own body, and we need to, not let this sort of, misogynistic, patriarchal type of, construct and paradigm rule, because it's basically just going to continue to put women down and put, minorities down. And essentially everybody will become, lesser value.
You're using some awfully big words there, college boy. Look at that bald head. Look at it. Woo! Yeah, I mean, essentially it's, so I'm friends with some conservative folks, and they're all kind of like, what's everyone, protesting? He hasn't even done anything yet. I think it gets back to that point of, they're protesting what they know he's going to do based off of his character.
Right.
And it's interesting to see, we were talking a little bit about, DAPL, the pipeline protest, and it seems like it's kicked off again, but there's sketchy kind of information. But to see, where are we going with this protest? Like, are these groups going to tie together? Because I know there's been protests where, like the Black Lives Matter people didn't join up with a women's group who was protesting because they said, race is not something we're talking about. It's just gender. And they're like, what? Like, come on. So are the protesters, will we find a unified voice against this guy, or will it be just, scattered and, kind of piecemeal? No one is really coherent on their message. And, what is this going to look like? Time will tell. I mean, we're Trump +1 right now.
That's why I was a little wary of, because protesting, I believe, is very important. It promotes awareness, and lets people know, like, okay, you know what, we're in solidarity. You start seeing other people protest. Okay, there's a lot of people out there feeling the same way. And so the thing that I'm fearful of is, like, what happens 2 weeks from now? What happens a month from now? Are they gonna put that momentum into action? Are they gonna put pressure on the elected officials? Are they going to be in the city hall meetings? Are they going to be out there actively fighting? Or is this going to be one of those things where it's just like, it looks good now, solidarity, the energy's high, but it dissipates over the next couple of weeks. And then we're kind of go right back to, like, the usual American cycle where you sit on your lazy boy and you kind of watch things unfold.
Oh, did you hear Kim and Kanye might break up? Oh my God. We should watch Access Hollywood.
But it's funny that you say that, though, because remember we talked about a couple of podcasts back, how we romanticize celebrity and we're a celebrity-driven, society. Yeah. But yeah, look where we're at, because he is the antithesis of what we talked about. So when you look at that, it's like Trump represents exactly what we value. You know, we value sensationalism, right? And he is every bit of that. You know, he gives you every single bit of that. We like luxury, we like material stuff, and he represents every bit of that. Think about his, you know, Manhattan or whatever it is, you know, apartment or penthouse, all gold. He represents everything that we love, you know, which is material, you know, and then celebrity.
Yeah, he's a billionaire reality TV star. He's exactly what this nation deserves. And I think everyone's looking at it going, damn it, I don't want that. I mean, it sounded cool, but it's going to be scary.
One thing that I would like to add on that, and then we can move on to the next topic. But what I also think is interesting is that I'm hearing from a lot of Trump supporters after the whole Meryl Streep thing came out, and she was talking, you know, obviously in opposition of this, you know, sort of, you know, downplaying of women and everything, and speaking out against that. What I think is very interesting is that from a lot of Trump supporters, all I hear is, well, that's why nobody likes celebrities, and that's why nobody listens to your message. And it's like, you just elected a celebrity. You need to like. And we're going to get into this a little bit later with kind of the psychology behind all of this, because it's really fascinating to me to see how people skip logical steps in their thinking. So, but let's go ahead and move on.